Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else. My name is Gumshoe, and welcome to the podcast. Today with me, I have a very interesting guest, someone new, which is great. So far, all these podcasts have been showcasing new people. So introduce yourself. Who are you?
Hello, everybody. My name is Alex. I am the podcast host of the Backlog Battle podcast. I am also a YouTuber at youtube.com/mybacklogbattle, and I talk a lot about like Japanese games because I've grown up with Japanese games ever since I was a kid, and I was like, all right, well, you know what? Like, you love video editing, you love talking about video games, you've had the podcast for almost 5 years now. Let's go to YouTube. Why not? Because, you know, that's not oversaturated, right? But I've been really thankful for, you know, all the success and stuff so far. And I'm really happy to be on this show, man. Like, it's been really good, like, so far, like, this weekend. It's Thanksgiving weekend we're recording this, but, like, man, I just feel good right now.
Awesome. So you basically started with podcasting and then moved on, not the other way around, like most people.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, you know, back in 2009 and 2008-ish and stuff, I was actually one of the first people on YouTube to have a group collaborative kind of gaming, community and stuff, gaming channel. Unfortunately, due to some internal drama and stuff, that kind of disintegrated. But, you know, I did both YouTube and podcasting at the time because I was inspired by Leo Laporte and Tech TV and stuff. Like, do you know who Leo Laporte is by any chance?
Yes. Yeah. Especially Tech TV.
Yeah.
That's, like, great.
Yeah. It is. And, you know, like, he, at the time, he started This Week in Tech, which was his weekly technology podcast. And so I said to myself, like, well, if he can do it, I can certainly do it. And so I gathered a bunch of my friends and stuff like that, and we started this thing. And, you know, like, it lasted, like, quite well. Like, we had, like, a couple of thousand, like, subscribers and stuff. And, you know, it's really, really good. It's just, you know, right now, nobody is really running it. It's just in a state of disarray. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go back to that. I'm just going to start my own brand. And the Backlog Battle YouTube channel is exactly that. So, yeah.
All right. Well, you'll have time to chill it out later, because that's what we do here.
Okay.
In any case, let's get into those headlines. First thing first is the Detective Pikachu trailer that dropped. This thing that's, I think, has been announced ever since the official game came out.
Yeah. Well, before, I think, actually.
Was it before? Because it seems like once the game came out a few days later, they announced that the studio that had this got the license to make a movie, and then nothing happened, and then suddenly this trailer dropped.
Well, it's like, you know, like, I remember seeing a lot of people really banding around, you know, the Detective Pikachu movie and stuff, and asking, like, if Danny DeVito could voice Pikachu, because I'm like,
which is both a meme and also not a meme.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing, but, like, you know, obviously, you know, that didn't happen. You know, like, we get Ryan Reynolds instead, which, you know, hey, like, you know, the way that I see it, this is just another excuse for him to be able to use Pikachu in a Deadpool movie, right? Like, you know.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm half expecting, like, a Pikachu joke in the next Deadpool film.
I am pretty dang sure that's gonna happen.
That's the whole film. He's just a Pokemon the entire film.
Pretty much, yeah.
Awesome. Though Ryan Reynolds did voice Detective Pikachu in the game. I think
he? In the game?
If I remember correctly.
What?
So yeah. So it's just kind of like, oh well, we get the same voice. Because why not? Given the fact that Detective Pikachu is not only a spinoff but also a visual novel, I feel like this movie has a much better chance of being actually good. Whether or not you think the character designs are good is another thing entirely. But me personally, I actually don't mind the CGI. It borderlines on creepy, but given the tone that they're going for, I feel like it's fine. Then again, this is something that I would probably I can probably dissect more once the film is actually out. Unfortunately, all we have to go by is the trailer, which isn't always as clear as we would like it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I
Never,
don't know. Like,
like,
as far as like the Detective Pikachu is concerned, like I saw the trailer and I'm kind of like, okay, well that's kind of neat that they're doing that, but like at the same time, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I don't want to be shot by your audience here, but I've never really been into Pokemon, so I'm kind of like, okay, well, like that's kind of nice, and it's obviously aimed for kids, right? Like it's, like
oh yeah,
they're
it's supposed to be aimed for both because you get the new kids in, but you also get the adults in by making this more of a serious type of setting, and the direction seems very much noir inspired. Well, neo noir specifically, if you want to get really technical here,
right?
But so I do feel like just because it is its own thing, it doesn't have to rely on the conventions of the main series, and it doesn't have to explain game stuff that is fine in game and not fine anywhere else. And the fact that we have a main character that is not a Pokemon trainer is something else within the Pokemon universe. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that are going for its favor.
Yeah,
it all just now depends on when the movie comes out, and hopefully it's good. Hopefully we can get a great video game movie.
Well, so far it's scheduled for May 10th, 2019, so we'll see how that goes.
Oh, that's close to my birthday. Oh, God.
Well, there you go. There's an excuse for you to go watch Detective Pikachu then. Great.
Though May, I'm trying to remember because May's usually when they have all the big Marvel blockbuster stuff. So I'm really curious of how well that's gonna do at a May release.
Yeah.
Hopefully it beats out, or it at least airs before the big Marvel stuff.
That's actually a good question.
It would have a better chance because especially since I think next May or so is when they're doing the next Avengers film. So I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking it up right now actually to see like when part 2 is coming out, because that'll be this will be huge if it just I mean it's kind of difficult, right? Because like you're right, it is really busy, especially for Disney and Marvel and and actually all the companies, because summer is like one of their biggest seasons and stuff, and so just kind of oh gosh, I just
and January is their off season. That's when everything that wasn't good enough just gets released, and you get crap like monster trucks.
So the next Avengers movie, which is of course the sequel to the Infinity War movie, is coming out a week before Detective Pikachu.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. The success meter might not be as good. So basically it has to be ridiculously good for people to consider watching. That it has to spread via word of mouth to rely on early box, or I'm assuming that opening weekend for that will probably be fine, but after that, it better be good if you want people to actually see it via hearsay and stuff.
Yeah. That's I agree with you. That's I'm always kind of really iffy when it comes to games releasing, or rather movies releasing around like the big blockbuster stuff, and normally like sometimes they do really well, sometimes because people have already watched the big blockbuster movie, like they'll be more open to watch other movies. I don't know about you, but I don't have too many friends that go back to the movie theater and watch the same movie again. Like that's
I have one person who has done that.
Okay.
I have one friend, but like he's a huge film nerd, so it kind of makes sense.
Okay,
it's fine.
Yeah, exception to the rule.
Yeah, you know who you are.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, the movie doesn't look too bad. I'm very much rooting for it to be good. Don't let me down, please. Don't do that.
Yeah. maybe at some point, like, I'll just ask you how it is since you're gonna watch it and stuff.
I'm probably going to watch it. I am looking for. I'm really looking for. Is this good to not just like to for people that don't know Pokemon?
Right.
Which that's if it manages to do that, then it has succeeded.
It's a tough sell, but we'll definitely see once it comes out.
Yeah, and we're gonna leave Pokemon for a bit. Don't worry, we're gonna go back to it, if you know what I mean. We need to talk about something else that is live action and also a game. It does have both. It's called The Quiet Man, and it's definitely been quiet over the years. God, this is a terrible segue. Anyway, The Quiet Man. Yes, that game you probably did not hear about.
I mean, we did see it at E3 in that like weird trailer thing that Square Enix released and stuff. But of course, everybody like came out of that like saying, "Huh? Like what the hell is The Quiet Man?" And then
it's
it
like,
said,
"What?
Yeah.
Okay, Kingdom Hearts."
Yeah, and then of course, like the thing that followed up was like, "Yeah, you'll learn more from Gamescom," and then we learned more from Gamescom, and I was like, "Okay, I don't want to learn any more of this game," so I'm just gonna.
You
mute
learn more from
this.
Gamescom. It's like, It did not look like they really wanted to show you more. It didn't look like they had a lot of faith in and they're kind of right because most of the reviews are,
Yeah. I've seen people play it on Twitch, and that was just wow. Like I'm just like, this is not a game that I would want to play.
It reminds me of Right to Hell Retribution, which is not a good thing.
Yeah. It also reminds me of a lot of those old Laserdisc like gun games and stuff, but they were better. But those were better in my opinion. Like I still have fond memories of like my Mad Dog McCree collection on the Wii, and I looked at The Quiet Man and I'm like, this is bad. Like this is even worse than like Dragon Slayer it looks like. And that's a Laserdisc game, you know?
Oh, yes. Completely. Now, my biggest thing though is that given that it is incorporating live action segments, a lot of people might think that this is a new thing, but games have been doing this for a while. And even I think the most recent example would probably be Quantum Break, even though that was very scattered everywhere. But Quantum Break, in my opinion, is still a worthwhile game that people should play if they're interested in that kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to Remedy's new game though. Control, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks amazing.
Yeah.
So
I've always been like a huge like Remedy fan and stuff. Like I've bought like both of the Max Payne games.
Wait,
I'm
both? Well, there was a third one.
Well, I mean that's not Remedy's though.
Oh right, right.
Remember, like that's Rockstar. Yeah, only the first two were Remedies, and then both Alan Wake games and stuff. I really love that. Like Quantum Break, like I whenever I get around to getting an Xbox One, whenever that's gonna be,
I think it got a PC release
for Windows 10, right? Actually.
Oh yeah. I think just for Windows 10, but that's still something.
That is still something, and at some point I'll get around to it and stuff because like for some reason like Remedy's games are like those kinds of games where like there's this perceived like highfalutin like praise for it, and then nobody buys it for some reason, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
it's weird, man.
Rip Alan Wake. That was basically me. I only got to Alan Wake like a couple weeks ago, and it's amazing.
Yeah, such a great game. Yeah.
Seriously is it both, and I love how it doesn't really take the narration that seriously at points, and yet it still manages to be like the most tense thing ever.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's like I have fond memories of that game just because like it's Remedy venturing out of their comfort zone, right? Like this isn't like a bullet time dual pistol shooter or whatever the hell. Like they were literally trying something new, and when they showed like like this kind of like the last part of like Raiders of the Lost Ark where they're like pushing the Ark like into this like big warehouse, and they were doing exactly that for like Alan Wake. I got really sad when they showed that like little animatic, and I was like, oh man, like, like I feel like Alan Wake is one of those series that got its legs cut off like way too early. Like, I would like to say, like, if Sony had actually, like, I don't know, like maybe bought Alan Wake or rather Remedy and stuff, like we'd probably see some, like a follow up to like Alan Wake and stuff. Cause like that's so far, like out of the three, console developers and stuff like that, console owners, like I always feel like Sony is more willing to take a lot of risks when it comes to properties and stuff. So, I mean,
it's really funny you say that nowadays when we have this huge debacle over censorship, which I would go more in depth here, but I actually kind of did an episode on this whole thing of what should be censored and what should be allowed for games. I think on my February episode of this year. So if you want to know my opinions on that, you go to there. Plug. Anyway.
Yeah, but let me elaborate on this, because like one of the things that people don't realize when companies make this move, this isn't just a knee-jerk reaction, right? Like, because you got to think that as a company, like Sony has to put those in place so that their product is palatable in other areas that they don't serve, right? Because a lot of people think like, oh, well, there's really three regions for video games. There's like Europe and North America and, Japan, of course. But, one of the things that...
Screw Australia. Australia doesn't exist.
Right, yeah. But like, there's other kind of smaller populations that, these businesses try to expand to, right? Like one of the things that happened early on during this generation was there was a huge push by not just the console manufacturers, but also like developers and publishers, third-party publishers, to actually expand to South America, because they realized that place was completely underserved when it comes to video games. And it still continues to do so, but if you look at South America, Sony has a place there, right? Microsoft, obviously, with like their X08 like event that happened several weeks ago and stuff, they have a presence there, so they know that there is a hungry market in South America. And part of that is basically aligning your your designs, if you will, of like your rule set, in order to be able to make it, maybe the best way to put it is to make it easier for all your developers to adhere to a more worldwide distribution, right? And maybe it's just a lot more strict in South America because, like they, it's kind of like very Catholic there in some parts and stuff. It's like, you have to kind of adhere to that. And imagine if you released a game in the United States and you wanted to release it in, say, Brazil or something like that, and to realize, oh no, you have to basically cut out all these parts. And another region is China, right? Like China was a huge market that, console manufacturers were trying to penetrate. Now, there is a problem this year where new video games, aren't allowed into China. So, that's another issue altogether. But the bottom line is, I feel like that move isn't necessarily to stifle creativity on their platform, but to really be more open to the idea of like, hey, if we want to release your game everywhere, we have to adhere to some sort of rule set. And I bet you that the reason why nobody's talking about Microsoft as well is Microsoft already has those rules, because that's another company that nobody talks about when controversy happens. And I'm like, yeah, just because they're number two doesn't mean that we can ignore them like willy-nilly, because I'm pretty damn sure Microsoft has had that since the very first Xbox. So yeah, and it's kind of funny how you mentioned like Brazil. That's another spot that has an interesting gaming market just in and of itself. I can't remember what video that I watched that, but there is a video on YouTube, and I was trying to look it up, and I can't find it for the life of me. Someone goes and basically interviews a lot of people in Brazil and just kind of their secondhand market, which it's really interesting. So if you have the time after this podcast, look that up. If I can find it before I actually post this, then it might be in the description. Yeah,
I'll at least try to do that. In any case, The Quiet Man, right?
Yeah,
on a tangent. I love that.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time on a podcast. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I hijacked
no, it's
it.
fine. I love that because we got a good tangent going. Anyway, The Quiet Man is good. I don't have much more to say on it other than that I would actually like to play it just because I love cringe and I would love to just see and experience it in as the mess it is before I give a better opinion. But as of right now,
I want to be clear though, because you said The Quiet Man is good. Do you mean the conversation is good and done, right?
Yes,
Not that the game is good. Okay.
No. And I said The Quiet Man is good in the sense that it's good to explore, and I feel like people should go for try to dissect what works and what doesn't work for The Quiet Man. Now, what doesn't work is probably going to be a lot higher than what does work, but there's something in there that does make it a little interesting. Again, the blend of live action and gameplay is something that I think could be explored better. It's not as it's surprisingly worse than any David Cage game that I ever played, and that is an accomplishment.
They're not traditionally cinematic / gameplay kind of driven games and stuff, but I feel like even without live action and stuff, like Alan Wake, we brought that up. I think all of Remedy's games are great examples of that. So Quiet Man, not so much.
Yep. And we'll leave it at that. All right. Next thing is the Fallout of Fallout 76, because that is a game that came out. And if you don't know Fallout 76, then I'm sorry. This is a weird exposure to hear it on this podcast. But in any case, Fallout 76 has come out to very, very, very bad reviews. Well, I mean, nowadays there have been some people that will defend it, but overall, especially if you look on Metacritic and the user reviews, it's yeah.
So
let's
is
just say
universally reviled at this point? Like even with like
I wouldn't say that far, but just overall general opinion is that this is the worst Fallout game ever made.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I hate to just kind of bring in like Metacritic scores all the time, but I mean it's very telling that there is 2,486 negative user reviews on this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, okay, so let's kind of take a step back, right? Like obviously Fallout 76 is this experiment by Bethesda to basically like create an online experience with Fallout 76. Now, here's the thing that I will give it props for, right? And I don't think with the negativity and stuff comes, like obviously like it's easy to slam games and stuff, but I will tell you this, Fallout 76 is more Fallout than Elder Scrolls Online. Okay? Like Elder Scrolls Online is nothing like Elder Scrolls. Like it is nothing like the Elder Scrolls experience. Sure, and I know this. I played it when
it's a solid game though, and I'll give it that. But for MMOs
but it's nothing like that experience though. Like it really isn't.
Oh yeah, no.
Like like all the weird funky stuff that you could do with the AI and like Elder Scrolls, you can't do that. You can do that in Fallout 76. So in that sense, like I think, Bethesda needs to be commended as far as approaching Fallout 76 in this manner, like literally putting their game engine, however borked it is or what have you, online for people to be able to play around with, right? But that being said, they didn't expect, like let's face it here, right? Let's not mince words. Every single time a Bethesda Game Studios game comes out, it's always borked. Right, like it's always buggy. It's always broken as hell.
Yeah, but it's so weird that nowadays, like this game comes out and then everybody is just like dissing because of how buggy it is, and I'm like, that's been kind of the thing. The people that have defended when Fallout 4 came out of it being buggy, I don't see any of that here.
Yeah.
It's what happened?
Exactly.
I guess people just became tired of it, which is great. But on one hand, you also got to realize that Yeah.
But then you get perfect scores for Red Dead Redemption 2, right? Even though it's buggy.
Yeah,
So it's
even
okay.
even though I have my entire thing of just it uses way too much detail and often feels very, very boring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I do not like having to spend that much time on my horse just so it can die because I accidentally ran it into a train and now I gotta do all that again.
Yeah.
That's fun. Great game of the year.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that I actually discovered, Gumshoe. Like, the big thing... So there was a survey at the very beginning of the year that asked what was what people's opinions were when it comes to bugs. And a lot of them actually said... A huge majority actually said that they don't mind it as long as the gameplay is good. And that to me is really telling of what's really happening here in Fallout 76.
I mean, that is pretty good because some of my favorite games of all time, especially when we get to the RPGs segment, I'm gonna bring up Obsidian. And I mean, if there's a game company that is pretty much known for bugs, this is probably them.
Yeah.
Next to Bethesda, but they're always doing solid stuff.
Yeah.
And those bugs aren't really that bad, except in the terrible instance that was
exactly. And kind of like where I'm getting at here is that there's a certain threshold where not necessarily the bugs, but the user experience is the one that's dictating people's ire, right? We know now, many weeks after it's released, that Fallout 76 barely has anything in it other than the gameplay of like, hey, let's all race to the end game and try to fire all these nukes, right? And within about a week or two of the game's release, people were already able to do that. In fact, people were already, able to fire 3 of them at the same time. So was that really that difficult? And that's kind of the thing is like, Fallout 76 is in this state of experimentation, right? Like it literally is like Bethesda not knowing what to do with an online version of their games, And
yeah, I can commend them for actually trying out something different. I can commend them for doing a more multiplayer focused Fallout game. It just kind of sucks that the execution was this way.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not like I wanted Fallout 76 to be bad. I don't want any games, but any game to be bad. I want every game to be perfect because then we could get more good games. That's what we need.
Yeah.
But for Fallout 76, I was just very skeptical about the entire thing, and when it came out, I was kind of disappointed. But I do see what they are doing, and I think that I hope that it just gets ironed out and then becomes one of those hey, this is actually a good game now after a few years, and
yeah.
So
well, here's
the No Man's Sky
right.
approach, where the game is now actually in a state where it's really fun to play.
Yeah, I totally agree with all points, because my whole thing when I was talking about this on my podcast and stuff is that, look, a lot of people shit on like No Man's Sky when it first came out, right? Including myself. I'll add myself to that. And there's
there was more things to shit on with that game than there is this. Yeah. Let's be real.
But also, let's not forget the other live games that have kind of had some problems too, right? Like The Division. If you remember when that came out, there was a problem in the starting area in Brooklyn where literally players had to line up in front of a laptop just so they can complete a quest, right? Like, and they didn't patch that until like maybe like a week or so, or maybe a couple of days after that, right? So, and also when people got to the danger zone, they couldn't figure out how to make PvP fun because people were just griefing each other because, hey, you can be a marked target easily if you just accidentally shoot somebody and stuff. So people would just, while you're attacking NPCs, like players would literally just on purpose run in front of gunfire so that, the other player gets flagged. And, it's.
Yeah, and I think now you have to do a certain amount of damage.
Right.
How they patched it.
But I guess what I'm saying here is that live games aren't going to be perfect when they came out, right? Like, and the thing is about live games is that over time it will just improve. So for one thing, the only things that I could see that they should have done differently is, first of all, they should have made this early access. I think that was actually that would have been a really
that
good
might
idea.
curve some criticism, not
Mhm.
all. It would also bring the whole, oh my god, this is early access, don't buy it because it's early access bias. But I do feel like a lot of people would be more
Yeah. It would dampen
forgiving for the bugs.
Exactly. It would dampen the negative criticism at the very least. Also, the fact that they charged a full $60 for this, man, that is bad news. That is
that's asking a little too much for what we got.
So one thing that I would, if I were the person responsible for Fallout 76, what I would do is I would release the game first on PC, right? I will put it on early access. I'll put it half price. I'll put it $30. That still might be steep.
That's
for
fair because it isn't. 30 would be super acceptable, seeing as it is an official Fallout game.
Mm-hmm.
And the premise alone being a more multiplayer thing. Yeah, sure.
But here's where it's going to be different, right? So I'm going to use the Shovel Knight model of how they actually charge for things. And as I'm adding more content to Fallout 76, I'm going to start increasing the price to a full 60. So that way, because if you think about 30 for like a Fallout game, that seems like a really good deal, even if it's like like an early access game, right? Like, so
if you really liked Fallout and you saw that the new one was going to be 30, even if it was very buggy and it's an early access, you would probably jump on that, and you would probably find a lot more enjoyment. And the fact that you could get to the end game super early wouldn't be so wouldn't like totally ruin the experience, because you would know it's an early access, and the fun and would be getting the updates and seeing what's new.
Yeah, this is a case of Bethesda trying to have their cake and eat it too, and it completely blew up in their face.
Well, but now they know that we should probably approach this differently next time.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Oh boy.
That's kind of the biggest problem with experimentation, is that you're always going to have those moments, those games that just you know what they're trying to do, and it's just, oh man, but it just didn't succeed. But you know that, well, it not succeeding is paving the way for other games to succeed. So
I'm always I'm a firm believer in failing often and failing fast, so that you can get back up and making like a really good game or something like that, like afterwards, the
people who made Lords of the Fallen, that terrible shield bash clone of Dark Souls, also made probably one of my favorite Souls like games, Surge.
And
I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Same company.
So anyway, with that said, we're gonna move on to the next topic. Coming back to Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee has officially been out for the Switch, and while it's nowhere near in the amount of downloads as Smash is going to be, it's gotten some very positive reception over the small amount of time that it's been released. I've been seeing a lot of people saying how cute it is, but I've also been seeing a lot of people that didn't like Pokemon or have never liked Pokemon play this game and have now gotten into the series. And I can pretty much see why. It's a much more simple and streamlined version of the Gen 1 Pokemon. It's not it's not as buggy as Gen 1 to boot. It's much more cuter, and you don't have like all these JRPG systems that you got to learn. You don't have a opening that takes like an hour for you to finally get into the world. And sure, I know that's just the way JRPGs are, but not everybody likes JRPGs like that. So as a gateway game, I feel like this is great, and I do understand why people would, at least at that time, why people were feeling very much like this game was not going to be good, but now that it's out, it's great. So,
are you playing through it right now?
No.
Okay,
But everything. everything that I've seen, it just makes it look like it's great, and the positive reception that it's getting among with some personal people that I know that have it. I was able to actually try it out though, and just seeing how the mechanics all work and everything. Yeah, I would probably recommend this for people that if they never played Pokemon and want to get into the main series, maybe start with this one. Especially if you've been playing like Pokemon Go, then you get that has integration, which is weird, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a value add for people who have been into Pokemon, right? But, as far as this game goes, I mentioned earlier on the podcast that I'm not really into Pokemon and stuff. This is actually one of the first Pokemon games that have kind of turned me around again to it. Because I did try Crystal quite a bit. Like, I mean, what was it? Like, was it called Crystal? I don't remember.
Crystal was Gen 2. Crystal's where I started.
Yeah. I actually no, like if that's the case, then I tried like the first 3DS one and the first original one.
Oh, the 3DS one, X and Y, they are not good. Those are way too slow. They're way too slow and way too boring.
So my buddy and stuff, like who used to be a co-host for the podcast, like he basically like tried to get me into it using that, right? And of course, it just kind of further reiterated why I don't like the Pokemon stuff in general.
Yeah, because it's very. I completely understand. I don't like X and Y at all.
Yeah, but then like one of the things that I came across when looking up this game is the fact that there are no random encounters anymore. Like you see the Pokemon just kind of hanging around like the grass and stuff like that. And if you want to challenge them,
you can pick them wherever you want. Also, wild battles are no longer a thing. So which people were complaining about, but honestly, you shouldn't rely on wild encounters for XP. You're supposed to rely on the trainers for that. Stuff, unless you're doing like a stupid challenge run. Like
wait. So how do battles like work in this game now?
It's just like traditional Pokemon battles.
Okay,
so you have the
menu based and everything, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's all menu based and stuff. So it's
okay. All right.
I thought basically it was trying to bridge the Pokemon Go and the main series together.
Okay.
And trying to get people that have played Pokemon Go or started with that to get more into the series, so they can grow their numbers. Because I believe that they are not. While you may think otherwise, Pokemon is not as popular as it was during its prime. The 3DS era, it's been going down. Sun and Moon kind of made it raise back up, but it's nowhere near what it was when it first came out.
Yeah. But like, looking at this though, this is obviously the first Pokemon game, like a full Pokemon game on a home console, right? Like, I mean, you can argue that this is portable, obviously, but
I would argue Pokemon Coliseum. That's technically a spin-off for the GameCube, and it technically doesn't have the exact same controls. It still has the same battle system, but the way you capture Pokemon is you actually steal them from other trainers. There's no wild encounters whatsoever, so it's different enough where I wouldn't consider it a main line.
Yeah.
I don't know. Pokemon Coliseum was weird, man.
Yeah, honestly, I've never heard of anybody like calling that like like a full mainline Pokemon game. So like I think really this is the one. This is the one, right? Like I think this is Nintendo even knows that, right? And and that the thing is like while I may I'm still mixed whether I want to get it or not. Like this is a great example of what the developers are capable of if given the full power of a home console, right? Like, I mean, granted, it's an NVIDIA Shield tablet, whatever. You could say whatever you want, but they did a really good job with this one, and a lot of people are loving it and stuff. Like, and really,
and Eevee is so adorable.
Yeah.
Though I wished we would have Fat Pikachu back. Fat Pikachu's best Pikachu. Anyway.
Yeah.
I fully agree with everything, and hopefully it will be on sale for the holidays. I say hopefully because it's Nintendo.
No, Nintendo. It's not going to happen. Like we'll probably see.
It's not going to happen for 2 years.
Probably not going to happen in 5.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No. In 2 years, it's gonna be discounted at for 5 off.
$5. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I'll agree to that.
See, it will be technically discounted, so I'm kind of right. Anyway,
Yes.
want to move on to our last topic?
Sure.
We're getting to the main story ish
Yeah.
or whatever. Anyway, Devil May Cry is getting a new show from the Castlevania devs.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah.
No. So there's gonna be a new Netflix. I'm pretty sure it is a Netflix show from the producer of the Castlevania Netflix show. It's been announced, but that's all we kind of know. People thought it was going to be Legend of Zelda because apparently there was a leak or something,
quote unquote leak,
quote unquote, that said, "Oh, this is doing something about Zelda." I think Zelda was mentioned, but yeah, that was not the case.
No.
Personally, I actually think that this is good. Because I am one of those people that really enjoyed the Devil May Cry anime for what it is.
You mean the Castlevania anime?
No, the Devil May Cry anime. There was actually a Devil May Cry anime.
Okay.
Released, I think, before the 4th game was out. It was done by Madhouse.
Okay.
So that's why I really liked it, because it's Madhouse and it's Madhouse means the animation is just amazing. The action is so great. Even if the story isn't really existent, it's just kind of a nice monster of the week type show, and it's only like 12 episodes, so it's not. See. So it was a nice little thing, and I enjoy it for what it is. But given the series is now getting its 5th entry, which I'm so excited for. Hopefully it doesn't suck. Please, Capcom, please. I think that it getting a new show is great. My biggest hope is that it decides to explore more of the everyday to day stuff that Dante does. As with the games, we kind of just see him whenever he's doing a big event, and we don't really get to know where exactly he lives, and even the people, because even just general people around him. The anime kind of tried to do something with that. One of my favorite episodes from Devil May Cry anime was one where it's literally just a guy who follows Dante all around because he's super curious, and it's from the perspective of just this random dude, and it was great. So I kind of feel like maybe making more of a town setting, maybe kind of establishing how other humans feel about Dante, and not just demons every time, could be an interesting angle to get this from. So I'm curious, but given the fact that I didn't really like season 2 of Castlevania all that much, I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
I'm a bit miffed.
Well, when you suggested that, the first thing I thought of was DuckTales. Because I'm like, because if you look at the current version of DuckTales and stuff, they explored the day-to-day of Scrooge McDuck. And to be quite honest, I don't think I'm interested in that. Like Dante, the strength of Castlevania is to try to tie the existing storyline with some of the more interesting pseudo-historical things that are happening during the time frame. I think that was where my interest in that series went. And then also to me, to your comment about season 2, I think Dracula's, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I don't think, it's one and done, at the end of season 2.
No, it is not.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of which is why it's super frustrating, because it doesn't feel like we got nearly the story, because it's still building up to something.
Yeah. But I think that's the limitation though of the show's production, the way that it is, right? So, my whole thing is I hope that Devil May Cry isn't going to be a 4-episode run for the first season, right?
No.
That's going to suck. But I feel like that's going to happen though. As a proof of concept, it's okay, well, we're going to do one season of Devil May Cry in 4 episodes and tell a story here. And then it's we're all going to be disappointed because it's going to be good, but that's, that might be just how their production schedule works. But, my whole thing is that I want them to try to really figure out like how they can expand a universe without having to go through like some of the minutia of like DuckTales and the way that they handle that. Obviously, they're two very different cartoons.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably gonna be very different, but I do understand. And then again, I would even say that the DuckTales is more or less just a reboot of all the Disney afternoon stuff because it's bringing in continuity from everything during that time, which is why I find it somewhat enjoyable. And even then, the original DuckTales was very much day-to-day stuff.
That's true.
Minus the movie, which is great because that's like a true adventure. See, my thing is that it'd be good to just kind of show a more laid back side and not have the world always in danger. But of course that's not like my entire thing. I want the show to definitely be like this. It's just it would be nice to explore the world. That's all at the end of the day, that's all I really want.
It would be, but again, like I have to bring up their production schedule, right? Like
yes, I know. And that's the thing. It's just depending on how many episodes we are going to get per season, it really just depends. And unfortunately, all this is just speculation. We can speculate what it's going to be for forever, but at the end of the day,
until it comes
we don't
out,
really know.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm hopeful that it's going to be interesting because I think they did some really good job, with like Castlevania so far. I am really appreciative that they tied in Curse of Darkness with season 2 for Castlevania.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
That was, oh boy.
Yeah, that was really
great.
that was really good. And and for some reason they kind of sort of tie, very indirectly, right? But they were able to tie in Lords of Shadow as well, which is freaking weird. Like especially with the design of one of the characters. Like they literally grabbed that design from Lords of Shadow and plucked that onto the character. I was like, whoa.
I actually didn't play Lords of Shadow until after I watched season 2, and I'm like, wait a minute, this looks familiar. And then I was like, oh wait, what?
Yeah. Not just a head anymore.
I do know that people don't like Lords of Shadows. I can understand why after playing through it. It's definitely different. But
it is different, but like at the same time, I like the twist. I kind of, to me, like, we've talked a lot about like, the Belmont family curse, but we never really got like a clear indication of what the hell it really is. But in Lords of Shadow, they actually put an actual reason what the hell that curse is, and now
some people don't like it.
It's weird. It's weird, but I was so on board when I found that out. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's bring on 2. Oh wait, no, this 2 sucks. So I guess I don't really know what I want. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And by the way, I don't hate season 2 of Castlevania. It's just one of those things where I recognize that it's not the full story.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because it but my biggest thing though is that I wish that they would use more tracks from the games. That moment where we got that remix of Bloody Tears was freaking amazing. And I hope that moving forward they put more of those great moments in.
Yeah, the showrunners are well aware of people's passion with the music, and they're trying to figure stuff out. The biggest problem with that is, Jazz Rack, the Japanese recording arts, whatever group and stuff, is very anal when it comes to like the certain songs remixed and reused and certain things. Basically, licensing is hellacious in Japan. So, yeah.
All right. And with that said, folks, now we're going to move on to our main topic for the night, day, afternoon. I don't know. RPGs and their stories. Now, something about RPGs that is kind of something I probably should address is that it's very, very broad. Really, if we think about it, every game is an RPG. Your role playing is something, but So I kind of want to narrow it down that when we mean RPGs, we're talking, unless we specifically mention JRPGs, we're specifically talking about games like The Witcher, stuff that BioWare has made, Dark Souls, because it technically does count as a, well, that actually counts as a JRPG, which is an entirely different thing. So yeah, just as a general disclaimer, this is the type that we're talking about in the stories of that. Just in case,
if it involves some sort of like mathematical calculation when it comes to damage and stuff like that, and it's presented, and there are tons of stats that you probably need, like sometimes a spreadsheet to figure out like how to do it. That is an RPG for me.
Boom, awesome. So we're talking like, oh man, I have the perfect example, and I just lost it. I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, one thing that I do want to address about when it comes to RPGs and stories is that these games tend to be very, very long. Often often what would be the most telling of RPGs is their constant side quests and how most of them tend to feel like filler. So I kind of want to pose a question. Has there been any RPGs that you have played where the side content, the like all of that doesn't really seem like filler and it actually does enhance the world instead of just being a mindless task so you can get XP?
I would actually immediately say Witcher 3, like without a shadow of a doubt. Because
that's the example I was going to bring up too.
Yeah, so there's that, but and from a weird opposite perspective, and this is a game that I often cover on my YouTube channel. Not a lot of people consider this as actually some people consider it an action RPG, the Yakuza series. So
I would consider that an action RPG.
Yeah, so two very different games, right? So The Witcher, The Witcher 3 specifically has this very interesting main story that leads into the Baron. And the Baron storyline, actually, the interesting part about that is they don't tell you that from there on out, like it becomes a side quest. But, when you continue there, you'll notice, like, wait a second, this is a side quest. This isn't what I'm supposed to do right now. And, I think that's, The Witcher 3 does a very good job of obscuring what a side quest is with what a main quest is on purpose and really well. Just also so that, you'll know that if you continue side questing in The Witcher 3, that there is actual depth to it. And what do I mean by that? That basically means that not only is the story very engaging, but also that it adds to the believability and the vibrance of the world in a way. Like, that these creatures exist in this world. These are the kinds of problems, and basically gives you the kind of proper context as to what that world is dealing with, whether it's political or fantastical or like some of the bigger issues that townsfolk deal with, right? Whereas, you go to the opposite end of the spectrum, which is Yakuza, you have this very super ultra serious main storyline, but then you venture a little bit off track and you start doing side quests. And
suddenly you're helping a dominatrix trying to be a better dominatrix.
Exactly. And there's that, but also there's, just some really ridiculous stuff. But, what's kind of interesting about that is that is the world that they wanted to create, right? And in a way, because of how kooky those side quests are, you stop seeing Yakuza as this GTA clone, which, granted, a lot of people who go into Yakuza see it as a GTA clone, and then they play it, and then they do the side quests, and then they realize, no, this is a playground filled with really ridiculous things that can happen. Like I can go to a Sega arcade.
In a sense, the side quests become a major draw for the game instead of being the thing that most RPG players kind of dread.
Exactly. And that is the one thing that both games that I mentioned do extremely well, because there is an added value that enhances your experience of the overall storyline, the main story. It doesn't detract from it. It's not like, oh, you have to do the side quest to get like 500 experience points so you can get to like, so you're high enough level to get to the next main story. Like, no, 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 no. Like, this is all complementary to the experience. And I think these two, games really exemplify that really well. One other game that I feel like is a little bit of a step down from these two games that have been released actually over the past year or so, is Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wish I had a PS4 because I really wanted to play that. But from what I've seen, it's amazing. So
Yeah.
do you wanna elaborate?
Sure. So just to give you an idea, not a lot of people platinum video games in the PlayStation 4. Spider-Man.
Really?
Spider-Man.
Huh?
Yes. They're typically below like 3 or 4%. Okay.
Wow,
And what a platinum.
that is pretty low.
Yeah, and the platinum basically means that you've collected all the trophies in the entire game, so that way this ultimate trophy basically unlocks. Basically, you've done everything that the developers have asked you to do, et cetera, et cetera. Two games have actually crossed above that 3 or 4%, kind of mark, if you will. Horizon was the first one, actually. What that tells you is that a lot of people are so immersed in the world and the world building that they want to basically ingest as much of that world as possible. Do every side quest, get every collectible, and do every single thing like quest wise and hunting wise and everything. And the thing that's kind of interesting about this game is that, like even with the hunting sections where they tell you like, oh yeah, use this weapon to hunt these gazelle or whatever the hell, it gives you kind of an idea of what the thought process is when it comes to like the culture that's happening in that world, right? Like they're all kind of indigenous tribes and stuff. They're all trying to defeat these robot monstrosities, and here are the kinds of things that they do in order to to really kind of survive in this world. And as you play more missions and stuff, the more context you have of what's going on in the world kind of comes into play. One of my favorite kind of side activities was when you're collecting all these artifacts and stuff like that. And these artifacts are kind of like these little cups with little designs and stuff like that. And, when I turned my first one in, it was really fascinating because the guy who I turned these into was talking about like how fascinating these like ceramics were, and he believed that these were like hats and stuff or combs. And I'm like, of course I obviously know that they're cups, and but he doesn't know what they are. And so there's this really kind of interplay of like expectation, knowing what those items are, mixed with like these indigenous tribes like understanding, that really add a lot of flavor to what you're exploring in that world. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why this game, along with Spider-Man, which is the other game that actually is highly platinumed, like a lot of people really get into these games,
Well, because for Spider-Man, you gotta have the no shirt, no shoes, no service suit.
Oh yeah, the Greg Miller suit. Yes, of course.
I love that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like where I'm getting at, is like they did a really good job with. It's not, let's put it this way, it's not like old school Assassin's Creed where you have to collect 200 feathers, right? And it doesn't mean shit, right? Like this actually means
get a
something.
cape.
Yeah, you get a cape. In this case, like it adds to your experience. And when my wife actually platinumed Horizon Zero Dawn, we were pleasantly surprised as to how much storytelling was embedded in all the collectibles, and also in all of the quests and stuff, all the side quests. And we really came away from Horizon Zero Dawn having a very good understanding of what's going on in that world. So, great example.
Yeah. It's actually really interesting to say that, because this makes for a good segue, because I actually kind of wanted to touch on the world itself, and that having side quests and side missions is a good way of doing that. But often I think what tends to get missed is the objects within the world themselves adding a lot, and it's something that the Dark Souls series has done very, very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Though some people would leave that up to debate, obviously. But then again, that's just part of of Dark Souls' charm, if you will. It doesn't really give you a proper story. Mm-hmm. Instead, everything is within these within the item descriptions and the world itself. So you got to figure out what is actually going on if you care about that sort of thing. Obviously, you could just not care, and it's just okay. It's a fantasy world, and I'm doing stuff. I just need to beat this dragon. Got it. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
We're good. But you could understand. Okay, well, why is the dragon here? Oh, he has chains. Oh, wait, but the chains are broken. I wonder what's that. Well, this item that I got was like a helmet, but the helmet says that it was supposed to be for someone that was gonna maybe kill the dragon. I guess he failed then. So it adds a lot more just from doing that. And funny enough, Dark Souls isn't the first game that I played that's done something like this. I know it's not technically an RPG, but have you ever played Metroid Prime?
Yes.
Yeah, Metroid Prime is another good example of the story being mainly locked away behind all the data logs, and a lot of it's entirely optional. So yeah, it's just a great way.
It's interesting though, like, you know, because that's actually one of the bigger complaints for Fallout 76. Not to belabor the point from earlier, but you know, like a lot of the storytelling in that game is, you know, so there are no NPCs in Fallout 76, right? Like so, but there are NPCs. Like that actually you can talk to, specifically to robots.
There's no NPCs in the traditional sense of Fallout NPCs.
Yeah, like there's no humans or anything like that. And otherwise, the in-between storytelling is actually told through data logs. So what, you know, to me, like the most fascinating thing about you know, all the games that you mentioned is that, you know, like I think actually let's backtrack. Metroid Prime and actually probably to a lesser extent Metroid Prime, but I think one of the things that's really good about the Dark Souls and Bloodborne, actually let's lump Bloodborne in there because it does that really well too, is the fact that they're able to, you know, enhance your experience of the world using all this text, right? Like for me, like, you know, I play an Elder Scrolls game, like the books are not something that I look forward to reading, right? Because there's just a butt ton of them. But like in, you know, in Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and of course Bloodborne, like there's certainly this, it's really mysterious when you play that game, because like obviously it's known for its challenges, but a lot of their decision to tell the story, like just literally like in between the cracks, if you will, of the world, like in some of the text, is to me truly fascinating, because, you know, it's subliminally kind of wanting you to immerse yourself in the world a little bit more. And people who normally wouldn't care about that stuff, all of a sudden they feel like they, you know, because they've enjoyed their time in Dark Souls, they'd want to learn a lot more about the world, so they do read it.
Yeah, my first time playing through the first Dark Souls, which was both fun and not fun, I didn't really care for the story, but then on my second playthrough, I decided to read all of the item descriptions, and I got a lot more out of the game.
Yeah. And it's a very economical way to tell a story as well. You don't have to make cutscenes and stuff.
It's also the important thing. It's also a very game way to tell a story, which is why it's something that you could never do in any other medium. It works because it's in a video game.
It's narrative through immersion.
Yes.
You know. So, be honest. I'm going to be honest here. I have never finished a Dark Souls or Bloodborne or Demon Souls. I have those in my backlog, but I haven't finished them.
Don't tell me you actually have every single one, or is it just like...
I have 3, Dark Souls 3, I have Demon Souls, I have Bloodborne.
Okay, so you have, but not Dark Souls 1 and 2. I started with Dark Souls 1. I have not played Demon Souls. I played Dark Souls 2. It was way too frustrating. I have Dark Souls 3, and I don't have a PS4, so I don't have Bloodborne. Rip.
Yeah, I started with Demon Souls. It's like the original that came out and stuff. And you know, it's not that I think they're impossible. It's just that I have to spend, you know, a considerable amount of time to learn the battle system. And to be quite honest and stuff, like it's taken me a long time, but I finally learned how to play Bloodborne to a certain degree and stuff. Like now my biggest problem with Bloodborne is finding out where the hell to go. You know? So,
well, that's what the internet's for, my friend.
Yeah. And a lot of people tell me like I should look it up on the internet, but I'm like, but what is that to say about my experience if
That
if I
is
just use
that is something
so
that we often forget, is that if your first experience with the game is via a walkthrough, then
yeah,
whether or not is that really a
is it
good or bad thing.
exactly, is it compromised because
I mean,
of that?
it's if we're playing the original Legend of Zelda, I would say heck yeah, use the internet.
Right,
But
that's true.
but if we're playing, I don't know, let's bring back to like something like Yakuza. Heck no, don't look up
Yeah.
a walkthrough.
Exactly. So, but like, as with most people and stuff, like I am intrigued by its lore and its storytelling and stuff. And, and the thing is, like, I appreciate that they're able to wind, the story and weave the story in between the actual encounters and into the actual text of your weaponry and stuff like that. And to me, that's just really, truly fascinating. And, like I can't remember right now if there are any other games that I've encountered that have told a similar way of storytelling, but yeah, like I really appreciate that. And I like some point, whenever I get around to going back to Bloodborne, maybe in about a year again or so, but we'll see, like, if I'll have more formed personal opinions on that. So yeah, by firsthand experience, that is.
All right. In any case, before we get off from talking about RPGs, I do want to briefly touch about something that a creator who is up in the rise now, who has just released his new game. It's kind of an indie title. I don't know if people have heard about it, but Deltarune. And
I hope they have.
I don't know. It's super niche. All right, like nobody's talking about it on the internet. So I may be like the first person. This is going to be great.
Are you sure? Because we talked about it last week on our podcast.
Oh crap! No, I've been ruined. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's fine. Anyway, so one thing I do want to kind of touch on with Toby Fox's approach to how do we tell a story is by player choice, or even sometimes the lack of choice. That is, it is a driving force with basically every RPG, is the choices that you make. It's something that Obsidian, I feel like, does really well. I actually recently finally got around to playing Alpha Protocol, which is an Obsidian RPG. It's been in my Steam forever, and I finally got around to it, and my god, that is so good. It's a bit buggy, but it's pretty good. And so going back to the choices, Toby Fox's first game, Undertale, was very, very choice driven, and it wasn't just do you say this or do that. It was down to the random encounters. Do you actually decide to be one of those players that grinds up because you like it? Well, if you do that, you're probably going to get a different ending. Are you one of those players that try to to avoid as much conflict as possible? Well, if you do that, you're going to get a different ending. Deltarune, though, decides to flip that on its head and say that choice doesn't matter, and it's kind of a good antithesis in a way for how choices don't really matter, but they matter. But they instead, the choices that you make in Deltarune matter in the moment more than the grand scheme of things.
Because what I heard from Deltarune and stuff is like, like you said, it is the antithesis of all the choices that you had to do in Undertale. But, Deltarune, it just completely disregards like every single choice that you had. One example that I was told was actually a really good example of this is when you're actually putting your name in.
Oh,
and
yes.
Regardless,
that is a great example. Whatever you do, it doesn't matter. And they set you up to make it think that all this stuff that you're putting in is super important. There's even some like Easter eggs if you decide to put some Undertale characters in. For the names, but it's just like screw that. You're just gonna get this one character, and you don't know anything. Everything that you just did was a total waste, and that sets you up very much for the entire experience.
Yeah, and you know, as far as like the whole game is concerned and stuff, like it's so fascinating too, like Deltarune for that matter, because it's like, you know, one of the things, you know, it's obviously a subversion of the genre as well, right? I
Oh,
mean, that's
yes.
what Toby Fox is known for. So it's like, you know, the game obviously shows you that you're level 1 and stuff like that. But in the entirety of the demo, you never leave that. You're always going to be level 1 because you try to kill somebody to get experience points, they run away before you even kill them. You know, so it's like it again. It's you know, like you said, it is the antithesis of basically everything that you've known about Undertale, being that, you know, you have control over like the kinds of endings and outcomes that you have, whereas Deltarune just completely rips that from you. Another interesting factoid as well is like when you start Deltarune, there is already a save for your character that exists there
Yeah.
with your name in the game. So it's like, it's not like you're starting from scratch and you're joining this world. No, you have already been predetermined from the point that you actually start the game, you know? And to me, that's, you know, that made me appreciate Toby Fox a lot more as a designer because, you know, he really thought a lot about this stuff. And I think this kind of, you know, storytelling of basically saying like your choices have no consequence and it really doesn't matter is a lot better than paying $60 for when BioShock Infinite got released, which talks about the exact same thing. You know what I mean?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
except that that's a game where I define it more of the journey than the end destination.
Right.
I mean, that's how I also justify Deus Ex Human Revolution. I enjoyed the journey, but man, I won't be defending those multiple endings anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah,
So-
if you have not played Deltarune, don't worry. Haven't really spoiled anything much for you. There will be a link in the description as always, so you can play the game. It is free, even if you have not played Undertale or are like me, who, you know, didn't really get into the hype of Undertale and just kind of brushed it off. I still recommend it. It made me kind of a fan of Toby Fox's storytelling. So I'm very, very interested to see where this project is going to go. It is. I will say that it is the first chapter of a longer game that he is working on, and that's all we know. Toby Fox likes to work very incognito, so we probably won't hear anything from him until, well, the second part gets released.
When it actually is out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been told at the very least that this is not going to be a chaptered game, so to speak.
No.
So the next time is just going to be the full game.
This is
and also
demo prologue.
Right. And also, like, one thing that he wanted to talk about, what he said was that this was actually made in about 3 or 4 years or something like that. So that's just a demo. So the biggest difference is that the full game is actually going to be developed by not just him, but also a few other people as well. So he's, you know, we don't know when it's coming out, but, you know, knowing that a lot more people are going to be like involved in stuff, I'm here's hoping that it's going to be out
that
soon.
It would be 2 years, and that's pushing it. That's like worst case would be 2.
Yeah.
And if it does happen to be 2, well, that's perfectly fine, because I will be there probably getting it day 1, because the demo has sold me on the game so much. So I
For sure.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm one of those people, like, you know, like this is one of those games where like I kind of am like, okay, well, that's cool that it's out and stuff. Like you know, a lot of people don't know this about me, but like, you know, I have more of an academic interest in games and stuff, and I'm not talking about like I'm not gonna be like a scholar or anything like that, but like, you know, I would like to be more aware of like what's going on in video games around me, so that way like it's, you know, and to me, like when Undertale came out and stuff, like I found that like to be like a, you know, like a true cultural kind of, you know, experience and stuff, and with regards to, especially if you're a huge fan of Earthbound and, you know, JRPGs in general, and how it like subverts like tropes and stuff like that. So yeah, I've always kind of found that to be like really, you know, my MO in a way. And, you know, when Deltarune comes out and stuff, like the full version, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna pick it up. You know, I have Undertale on Switch and Vita and PS4. I'm pretty dang sure I'm gonna pick it up whatever platform Deltarune comes out in. So yeah,
It's probably going to be released on all of it. You just know. Just release it on everything at this
Mhm.
point. Even my toaster.
Yeah, or a mobile phone.
Ooh.
I mean, isn't
I would
Undertale on a
be
mobile
very
phone?
interested to see how that would work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
um, I in any case, I do kind of want to touch on some bad RPGs that we've played, and you know, when we think of like bad experiences that we have with the RPGs or just terrible ones,
Mm-hmm.
often I feel like people would point to, well, it's because bugs or it's because the story was just not as fulfilling. Maybe it was a annoying mechanic, but you want to know what game has all of those and is developed by BioWare?
Mm-hmm.
Sonic Chronicles Dark Brotherhood. If you have not
Mm.
played this RPG, good for you. You are a better person than I am, because my
Mm.
god, it is so terrible. It's everything you would not want an RPG to be.
Yeah. I could see that. I used to have that game.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, I can totally empathize. Um I think I have you beat though.
Uh-oh.
I think I have you
Do
beat.
do do you have me beat? Okay.
I think so. Beyond the Beyond for PS1.
Oh, I actually only heard of that game, so I know nothing.
Yeah, so, imagine me, like a first time PS1 owner, not knowing Final Fantasy VII's about to come out and stuff, and, really fresh from Final Fantasy VI. And I'm like, yeah, I want to play a
Great game.
really, yeah, I want to play like a really good looking JRPG, right? Oh, look, Beyond the Beyond. There's some great artwork in the cover. What? It's on like a 2-disc box? Let me buy it. Man, I was so bored with like the kind of gameplay that it had, and the story was just generic medieval crap. I was like, okay, I'm selling this to Funko Land or Software Etc. or Babbage's or whatever, and get something else.
I
And
wonder if
or
it's actually one of those games that's pretty rare to come by now.
I don't know actually, but I know that I've tried to talk to people and stuff, and there are those people who were fans of that game when it first came out, but like I've only known few people who like actually really really truly enjoyed it and stuff, like because I'm looking at the ratings that it got back in the day and stuff, and let me just read them to you, right?
Sure.
So EGM gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Game Revolution gave it a C out of, I don't know, I guess A or something
C out
like
of
that.
S.
Yeah. GameSpot gave it a 5.5 out of 10. IGN gave it a 4 out of 10, and Next Generation Magazine gave it a 2 out of 5. So
Which one do you think
it's
is closer to your standing if you had to do like a general rating?
definitely less than half the points
Dang.
to be given. And just because it's just, again, it's like it has the veneer of a great game, right? Because it's all flashy, it's all newish,
Oh, those are
and
the
stuff
worst,
like that.
the
But
worst
like,
types. When you
Yeah.
when you see that there could be a great game in it, but it just fails.
mhm.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah. It basically, like, like a lot, somebody actually reviewed an RPG Gamer recently, and they said that it's just a pain in the butt to play because it takes a tremendous amount of time to beat it, because the dungeons are super long and complex, and the encounter rate is too high, and the bosses are just like way too difficult. Like, it was literally like nobody balanced that game out. Like, nobody said, hey, we should probably tune this down. No, yeah,
That
it
happens when
was.
you don't have QAs.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably QA'd, but just like nobody said, like,
it was
hey, maybe
QA'd
this
by
is
the
too much.
one person who was drunk when he played it. I was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, it's and another thing too, like the soundtrack, which was all in MIDI, and it wasn't like in any sort of like high resolution format, which again, Gen 1 JRPG on the PlayStation, understandable, but holy crap, this would not be the first RPG that I would think of playing on a PS1.
I still say that what they did with Sonic Chronicles Dark Brotherhood for DS is music would be worse than anything, because that's the worst sounding DS game I've ever played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
Okay. Well,
I'm gonna have to look up that now because and then probably look up on eBay. It's probably gonna be like 100 plus, and I'm like, oh, you're kidding me?
is it $100 on eBay?
Okay. You know what? I am going to look it up. What was the name again?
Beyond the Beyond. I mean, the game's name is already generic as it is. So
Beyond the Beyond. Oh, apparently there was a sequel. Was there a sequel made?
I
don't think so. No, there was not.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
It's $13.99 on Amazon used.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should have held on to it. That's all I'm gonna say.
A whopping $13. Actually, funny you say that. A few years ago, I actually went on like a PS2 buying binge, and I actually started buying some really old games that I wanted to play. And one of the games that I had bought was actually two of the games that I bought was Rule of Rose and Hunting Ground.
Oh.
Both of which are sitting between $100 to $200 on Amazon right now.
Sweet.
Yeah. And mind you, this is like covers intact, manuals intact, discs scratchless.
I mean, I still have my MGS twin snakes that I got during like when it first came out.
Nice.
And me not knowing that it would be that highly sought after. It's not the most expensive GameCube game by far, but I mean, wow. I'm surprised.
Also, Silent Hill 2 for PS2 is $129.
Oh man, wow.
Yeah. Because the Silent Hill remake was crap, the compilation. So it's the only way to play it.
Is that the same version that's also on the Xbox, like original?
Yes.
Oh, because I actually have that.
No.
I was gonna.
No, the original version on the Xbox. Oh, you mean?
Yeah, because there was
I'm
a Silent Hill 2. I think it was a redone version that was released. That was multi-platform.
On the Xbox, it's called Silent Hill 2: Restless Dreams.
Yeah.
Because you get to play as Maria and stuff in that, and that's actually really interesting. And
that's the version I actually have, and I got that for $5 with a box and manual and everything.
Okay, yeah, let me now I'm curious because like Restless Dreams. Okay, Restless Dreams Xbox. I'm looking this up right now. $8.99.
Yeah, it is not super expensive.
Mm-hmm. Which is weird because the PS2 one's like $100 more.
And don't more people have PS2s than like original Xboxes? Well, I mean, it also is backwards compatible for Xbox 360, but
yeah. Yeah, interesting. But yeah, anyways,
it's so weird, the secondhand games market. You can never tell whether or not something should or shouldn't be expensive. I mean, I remember when Lollipop Chainsaw was like, well, let's just say it wasn't as non-expensive as it is now because it was sought after if you like Suda51 stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I remember like posing with like Jessica Negri and stuff when she was like posing as the main character like at Anime Expo or something like that. That was a long ass time ago though. But like I'm looking at like Lollipop Chainsaw right now. It's like only like $20 on Amazon and stuff.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
I think at a time it kept it $60 for a while.
Oh, check this out. The Japanese version though on the Xbox 360, the Lollipop Chainsaw Valentine Edition is $263.73.
There you go.
Okay.
And because it's the Japanese version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh well.
Anyway, I think that is going to be it for the podcast. So, with that said, who are you again? What do you do?
Okay. Again, my name is Alex, and I am the host of the Backlog Battle podcast and the video editor / YouTuber, who works on all the videos on the Backlog Battle YouTube channel. So if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm on twitter.com/mybacklogbattle and on YouTube at youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. So basically just remember My Backlog Battle and you'll probably remember me and find me on wherever else and stuff, like except PSN because I have a different name. So maybe when we get the PlayStation renaming thing, I'll rename it to that as well, but we'll cross that bridge once we get there and stuff. So but yeah, like I said earlier, like I talk a lot about like Japanese games, JRPGs, Yakuza. I talk a lot about Final Fantasy, some Western games, but not too often. I mostly venture Japanese side and stuff. But hey, like if anything, contact me on any of those and we'll chat and stuff. But I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Gumshoe, because I had a really great time on the show, and hopefully we can do this. Oh yeah, that's right. We're gonna do this again, aren't we?
Oh yeah, we are. I don't know when this is gonna be uploaded in comparison to the other thing, so I'll leave that as a mystery. And depending on when this uploads, you'll have no idea what we're talking about, or you will have an idea what we're talking about, which is great.
Yes. Yeah.
So for a person that's never seen your stuff, what would be the first video you would recommend them?
Okay, so I have a bunch of I have like a playlist with all my popular uploads and stuff. I basically do the hours later reviews, and how this is different than most reviews is that I actually tell you how long I played the game, like literally in the title of the review. So like I tell you like let's say how many hours I played. Like what would be like the more reasonable game, like Fist of the North Star or Taiko Drum Session and stuff, like and all these other games and stuff. And really like the whole point of it is to give and also like my whole thing too is that while it's hours later, I'm not going to waste your time and have you watch a video that is 10 to 15 minutes long. I am a firm believer of reviews that that you can talk about like with it or watch rather between like 5 to 10 minutes.
Unless you have something really interesting to say, or there is a lot that you could say, then yeah, I feel like you should never purposely stretch out a video.
Right. I'm not one of those YouTubers where I believe like I have to have a minimum of 10 minutes for a review. I make the reviews like how I write it and how I want to talk about it and stuff. And really like I talk about the things that are really important for the games and stuff, especially like if there are issues, then I will talk about some of those things, like some of the things that I find a little bit of a problem with, and really like, that's, you only need to give me 5 minutes of your time, and that's really enough, for me. And to be quite honest, like a lot of people have really been have positive like kind of things to say about that, because it's almost like I want to take back YouTube the way that it was back in 2008, like only 10 minutes and below, because I remember back in the day you could only upload a 10-minute video.
I thought it was 15 minutes.
No, before that it was 10 minutes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was even more limited than that. So, and
it wasn't even in HD.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of like where I'm coming from. Like I want to be able to give you a lot of information about the games that you want to purchase and stuff, or like maybe you're curious about like any other games that are coming out, because I'm also doing like news in addition to the hours later reviews. I'm also doing impressions in the event that I don't get an early copy of a game, so I'll just do my initial impression, so you'll know how the game is feeling really early on if you don't want to have a trigger finger. And then of course, like if you want to see like everything else that I want to talk about, and that's all on the podcast. And the podcast, by the way, Gumshoe, this podcast has never missed a single week since its release like 4 years ago, and we're actually approaching our 5th year this January, so we're really excited about like crossing that like half a decade mark. It's really crazy,
and that's what I call a success story somewhat. Anyway,
thank you.
One thing that I do want to say is that I really love the Hours Later series, because just how you've been able to kind of preface it with, and just how it's designed is incredible. So I want to thank you for like starting that series, because that's really good.
Thank you.
So yeah, folks, thank you all for watching, listening, whatever, the podcast. if you want to know what's happening with me, I'm also on Twitter. I've been streaming a lot more regularly on Twitch. I have an updated schedule now. I am working on another video. Unfortunately, it's going to be delayed because of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving took my entire week, so whoops. But that's okay. Other than that, yeah, that's about it. So, with all that said, this has been Gumshoe, and also the other person, and we're signing off.
Thanks.